The overarching request is for Parliament to consider, approve, and adopt the contents and recommendations of the sessional paper. At the core of these requests is the goal of promoting a holistic approach to financing our foreign policy implementation, maximize effective utilization of Kenya's assets abroad, and bolster the foreign service staff through improved terms of service and a structured process of professional recruitment and deployment. As the founding document of the sessional paper, the Kenya Foreign Policy 2024 provides a comprehensive framework for conducting the country's foreign relations and diplomatic engagement. It aims to promote and safeguard our national interests and enhance the country's global standing. Indeed, as the theme of the sessional paper suggests, this is a grand strategy for positioning our foreign policy in the ever-evolving global landscape. This is why you have noted that instead of dwelling so much on pillars, we now have focus areas to reflect the adaptability of our foreign policy to the rapidly mutating global system. We have to be prepared for the emerging geopolitical transformation, which is creating serious challenges, including a new scramble for Africa and subsequent resurgence of the Cold War. The unfolding world order is that of multipolarity and unipolarity, unilateralism rather than multilateralism, protectionism rather than free trade, and growing indifference and transactional conduct rather than humanitarianism. The outcome is that states are largely taking to the realism world of viciously pursuing selfish interests and getting more inward-looking. To continue adapting and successfully navigating this evolving global landscape, we have to be strategic and ambiguous in ring-fencing our interests and projecting Kenya's position on matters of geopolitical significance. In this regard, the sessional paper makes a bold assertion of the Kenya country position on strategic foreign policy issues, including a two-state solution to the Israel-Palestine conflict, Pacific resolution of the Ukraine-Russia crisis, and the One China policy. The objective is to authoritatively articulate, defend, and advance Kenya's national interests in the complex and ever-changing global arena. It will further advance Kenya's ability and resolve to deploy policy actions that protect and promote the interests and welfare of our citizens, wherever they are in the diaspora. Finally, we look forward to open and interactive discussions. This will enable us to deliver a final document that comprehensively addresses all perspectives of our national interests and Kenya's transformative journey in the emerging world order. And Mr. Chairman, your committee is so pivotal in this regard. I am delighted to see you all today as we begin our deliberations on the sessional paper number 1 of 2025 on the foreign policy of the Republic of Kenya. This retreat provides a platform for the executive and legislative arms of the government to engage on the proposals in the sessional paper and the feedback received from the public to enable us make practical recommendations for shaping Kenya's foreign policy. The sessional paper, which was developed after the launch of the Kenya Foreign Policy 2024 in December last year, is a strategy document presented for parliamentary scrutiny and debate to allow for refinement of the policies it proposes before they are implemented. And I'll repeat that. It is a strategy document presented for parliamentary scrutiny and debate to allow for refinement of the policies it proposes before they are implemented. As a ministry, we have fully embraced the principles of public participation and even gone a notch higher to engage members of parliament who are the people's representatives. Let me take this opportunity to appreciate the National Assembly for further extending the arc of public participation by availing and subjecting the sessional paper to public scrutiny. You will note from the top page of the sessional paper a Kiswahili theme, Sera ya Kenya ya uhusiano wa nje na nchini hadi mashinani. The objective is to emphasize the new foreign policy approach that aims to involve our citizens right from the grassroots to the international sphere. This is the essence of our new policy direction, embodied in the expression Foreign and Diaspora Policy Mashinani, that solidifies the national ownership of our foreign policy even as we position Kenya internationally. The sessional paper provides a framework for policy development and implementation. It presents several requests for consideration by Parliament that are critical to the conduct of Kenya's foreign policy. This encompasses diaspora issues that are highlighted in the Kenya Foreign Policy 2024 and operationalized by the recently launched Kenya Diaspora Policy 2024. A few things that we will hope for is that once the committee has put everything together, the final document, we definitely look forward to the robust debate in Parliament and the endorsement of this sessional paper so that we can now move forward with more clarity and avoid guesswork on critical matters of our foreign policy. So I'm really appealing to you to help us drive this. And remember, it is the sessional paper number 1 of 2025. So you and I, plus my team at the ministry, are in partnership to deliver sessional paper number 1 of 2025 to the Kenyan people. The sessional paper has been approved by Cabinet. The first position was that Cabinet approved the policy. After the conversation, then Cabinet approved the sessional paper. But it is clear that Cabinet was approving the sessional paper because they knew very well that Parliament is the pillar and the anchor, and parliamentary input on our foreign policy is going to be extremely critical because this is a thing that we have not been pursuing aggressively. We want to change that course and make sure that Parliament is deep into the whole process of helping us direct our foreign policy. It will make it easier to deal with budgetary issues. It will make it easier to deal with very many other challenges that arise.
Your Excellency, honorable members, allow me to laud the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs under the able leadership of the Prime Cabinet Secretary for the novelty deployed in the development of the Kenya Foreign Policy 2024 that was transmitted to Parliament and is now before you as a sessional paper number 1 of 2025. The formulation of this policy marks a great milestone in providing a clear roadmap for diplomatic relations that appreciates the dynamics of globalization and technological advancement while protecting our national interest. Honorable Chairperson, as the State Department mandated with the facilitating MDAs in upholding international best practices and the prescribed constitutional processes in policy formulation, I'm delighted to report that the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs in developing this policy involved the State Department for Parliamentary Affairs from the initial stages of policy initiation, and hence the policy fully adheres to the recently launched Public Policy Handbook for Kenya 2024. I'm further aware, Your Excellency and honorable members, of the extensive stakeholder engagement that was undertaken. The intent was not only to meet the constitutional dictates, but also to incorporate as much opinion as was received. Thus, this very elaborate and well set out sessional paper was realized in the form and structure before us today. My State Department reaffirms its commitment in supporting the other remaining legislative initiatives within the ministry, including the diaspora bill that is being developed by Diaspora State Department.
But as a Foreign Relations Committee in the National Assembly, we recognize the dynamic and evolving nature of the international relations. Kenya's foreign policy has long been anchored on the pillars of peace, diplomacy, economic diplomacy, diaspora diplomacy, environmental diplomacy, and cultural diplomacy. These principles have guided our engagement with regional and international partners, ensuring that Kenya remains a key player in the global affairs. However, as we look forward into the future, it is imperative that we assess the effectiveness of our diplomatic engagement and identify areas that require reinforcement of our diplomatic engagement, and identify the areas that require reinforcement or realignment. This briefing, therefore, Honorable PCS, provides us with an opportunity to deepen our understanding of the objectives and implementation strategies outlined in sessional paper number 1 of 2025. The only areas that we probably want to look at is, as we engage today, let me emphasize on some very critical areas that I think warrant our attention. And number 1 is Kenya's economic aspiration, demand a foreign policy that supports trade expansion, foreign investment, and market diversification. How do we then leverage a global economic framework such as African Continental Free Trade Area to boost Kenya's economic growth and international trade relations? That's number 1. Number 2, Kenya continues to play a vital role in promoting peace and security within the region. Our diplomatic engagement in Southern Sudan, Somalia, and Great Lakes regions have been significant. How can we further enhance our contribution to conflict resolution? This is very contentious. There are people who feel like, also what Kemp mentioned, some people feel like, why should we continue providing peacekeeping, yet we have our own challenges as a country? Should we focus on our country and forget about continuing with peacekeeping? So those are some of the engagements. And in public participation, I don't know if it was Kenya National Human Rights. They actually had a concern on our continued mission, continued as a country, our continued efforts in peacekeeping, because they argue that we still find that in the budget, for instance, you want to spend about 5 billion in this financial year to send our officers to Somali for transition forces also. But yet, we have our challenges as a country. So should we review that and refocus on the country? Those are some of the things that were raised in the public participation. The Kenyan diaspora is critical economic and social asset to our nation. Their remittances, Madam Jogo, investments and knowledge transfer have far-reaching impacts. What strategies can we adopt to strengthen diaspora engagements and support their integration into the national development efforts? Climate change is an existential challenge that demands global cooperation. Yesterday, this committee, a few members, have been with the National Intelligence Service, the Mashariki Conference. Very, very engaging. Global and the issues of climate change have come in as a security threat. It's not just any other issue of climate anymore. It's become more of an international security threat. So Kenya, as a host of the United Nations Environmental Programme, has positioned itself as a leader in environment conservation. How do we enhance then our international partnership and climate diplomacy to attract greater investments in green energy and sustainable initiatives? And finally, Your Excellency, Kenya is actively involved and engaged in multilateral organizations such as the East African Union and the United Nations, the East African Community, and the Commonwealth. How can we optimize our diplomatic strategy to ensure that our participation in these bodies yield tangible benefits to our national interests? So, ladies and gentlemen, let us take this opportunity to engage constructively, ask pertinent questions, and provide policy recommendations that will strengthen our diplomatic engagements globally.
Your Excellency, honorable members, we've gathered this morning with the intention of interacting with the draft foreign policy sessional paper. And therefore the purpose of our gathering today is to create a shared and in-depth understanding of this sessional paper on Kenya's Foreign Policy Revised 2024. This is, of course, underpinned, as you know, by a very fast-moving and fast-changing global context and the need for us to align our foreign engagements and priorities with our national interest, Vision 2030, and the lived reality of the globe today. The objectives of this retreat are to assess key policy shifts and their implications, to foster collaboration among legislators, policymakers, practitioners, and strategic partners, to develop a roadmap for policy execution, and to explore ways to strengthen diplomatic and foreign engagements of the Republic through this sessional paper. It is the expectation from this workshop that we will have gained a comprehensive and better understanding of the sessional paper, that we will come to a consensus on strategic pillars relating to the implementation plan, that we will appreciate better the need for enhanced coordination amongst key stakeholders, and that there will be a sense of strengthened partnership necessary for policy execution. The key discussion areas are as follows, the most critical of which, of course, is the financing of our foreign policy, issues that touch on the transfer of the ministry from the Public Administration and International Relations sector working group to the Security Sector Working Group, issues around acquisition, the development and management of Kenya's assets at both headquarters and abroad, issues around career progression of our foreign service officers, the Foreign Service Academy, the proposed Kenya International Technical Cooperation Agency, the Diaspora Placement Agency and Diaspora Welfare Fund, a review and development of the legal framework, and matters touching on Kenyans' placement internationally. In terms of outcomes, I think they're similar to the outputs, but I think of importance there is to mention that it is our hope to hear from Bunge, particularly around the committee's engagement with stakeholders and stakeholder input from the initial draft of the policy, with a view to enabling us to respond to those issues. It is our hope that we will also receive guidance on the way forward.
We need to understand that in Germany, in Europe, we have failed to use the peace dividend well. We have failed to use the times of peace and prosperity to prepare for tougher times. Now we are heading into tougher times, and we are at a decisive moment right now. I'm not too pessimistic, because if we are honest to ourselves, we can pull the right strings, we can make the right decisions, we can come out of this crisis stronger than before. Not with that old idea of the West, but maybe with a strong, united Europe with strong partners in the world. Business as usual is over, crisis is the new normal, and the old order will not survive in its current form. And this is where I think it becomes very interesting for Kenya to come in. Because one is, Kenya has shown its commitment to multilateralism and to strengthening and sustaining a rules-based international order, but at the same time, Kenya has been a very strong voice on the need to reform the international order. So this, I think, is an opportunity that we are looking at. In very concrete terms, from the German perspective, what is happening now and what will need to happen under the new incoming government is, one, a massive need for reforms, an actual transformation of our bureaucracy, our welfare, our infrastructure. We need to address the rise of populism, the crisis of democracy. We need to face the demographic challenge. The demographic development in Germany and Europe is quite a contrast to what is happening in Kenya. And we need to gain back our defense capacities. The question of European strength and unity and the future role in the world is one that concerns us a lot. If Europe right now doesn't take the right lessons, doesn't stand together and doesn't stand strong, we will not be a big player in the new international order. And it might not be the kind of order that we would want to see. That also means we will need to seek future alliances, stronger alliances for strategic cooperation and for the protection, but also reform of the rules-based international order.
Waziri, I want to thank you for your leadership of the ministry, but specifically today for your leadership in pushing this foreign policy conversation to a sessional paper. It was your dream, and I think we are at that point now where we are having a national dialogue on matters foreign policy. I want to thank you for that. And for the heavy lifting that has been done by my brother P.S. Singoi and P.S. Aurelia in bringing together our ministry and Bunge, and for the partnership, of course, of Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. This sessional paper is an important opportunity for national dialogue on foreign policy. Very often, I think, we are all asked, but what does this ministry do? How can we touch and feel the work of this ministry? It doesn't build roads, it doesn't build bridges, it doesn't educate children. Can you give us some things to touch and feel? I think that question has been asked another way. Why does the president travel so much? What does he bring when he travels? It has been a feeling of mine for a while now in the 2.5 years, 2.25 years that I've been in this ministry, that all our policies, including the foreign policy, needs to take a decisively people-first approach. It must always be about the people. This sessional paper gives us an opportunity to do just that, to submit the work, the policies, and our ideas around what we do to a national conversation in Bunge and with citizens of this country to ask themselves these questions about what we do. I would like to propose that diaspora diplomacy is a key touch point for making a foreign policy a people-first document. Diaspora diplomacy allows us to touch and feel people. For people to touch and feel diplomacy, for people to touch and feel the work that this ministry does. Our diaspora now is 4 million strong. 4 million people around the world is bigger than the population of Nairobi during the day. It is an army out there. And we are entering a new era of diaspora diplomacy, where we are seeing increasingly the diaspora playing a critical role in business, in economics, in development. Diaspora remittances, for example, have now outstripped not just other sources of forex, which are your usual coffee, tea, horticulture, tourism, but also foreign aid. And that's an important thing to flag, particularly following Matthias's conversation about aid and where that direction is going. So this sessional paper allows us, or gives us an opportunity to think about how the diaspora can be a decolonizing force and how the diaspora can play a critical role in decolonizing countries and in funding countries. But we've also entered an era where we're increasingly seeing our diaspora taking up political leadership in other countries. What does that mean for us in terms of diaspora diplomacy? How can we extend our own reach in these places? But as that has grown, we've also seen a growth of diaspora in crisis. We've seen, with the growth of Kenyans in political spaces, in business, in economics, we've also seen a growth in crisis because we've also seen a growth of labor mobility, labor migration, sometimes to places that are, haven't been very safe or haven't been very welcoming to Kenyans. And therefore, as a people, we need to have a structured response to that crisis, to that portion of our population that is on the move and that is in crisis. So I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to a deeper conversation then today and eventually in Bunge on how, as a nation and through this sessional paper, do we protect, engage, and empower and prosper Kenyans in this space. Asanteni sana.